Our next guest is Nick Adenhart. And sometimes tragedy can spark a lot of good, and that's never been more present than in our next inductee. Tonight, we're honored to induct former Cedar Rapids Kernels and Angels pitcher Nick Adenhart into the Hall of Fame. Former Kernels general manager Jack Rader and myself sat down to talk about what Nick meant to Cedar Rapids, what Cedar Rapids meant to Nick, and how he continues to positively affect many here in our community. Here with Jack Rader, former general manager of the Cedar Rapids Kernels, to talk about Nick Adenhart. Nick Adenhart was here in 2006 with the Cedar Rapids Kernels, collecting 10 wins, 2 losses, and an ERA of 1.95 and 16 starts. 14th round draft pick by the Angels in 2004 out of Williamsport High School in Maryland. And Jack, as a player, what are some of your favorite memories of Nick?
Well, he was a terrific young man. That's the first thing that stands out to me. Second thing that comes to mind is that he would have been a much higher pick, but he hurt his arm and had Tommy John surgery. He might have been a first or second round pick, and as it turned out, he went in the 14th round, and we were very fortunate to see him in Cedar Rapids. As everyone knows, his career was just getting off to a terrific start, and you know, he was taken from us, but you know, it was a situation where, you know, he just pitches a ball game, and within a couple hours, he's no longer with us, and would have still been in the prime of his career right now with the Angels.
Made his Major League debut with the Angels May 1st, 2008, and then the 2009 season debut came on April the 8th in Anaheim against the Oakland A's. His 4th Major League start, 6 scoreless innings, all at the ripe age of 22, and he was tragically killed when a drunk driver struck his car, as Jack said, just hours after that ball game, the car he was riding in, and 4 other people were in the car, and 3 of them died, and just such a terrible incident. But the neat thing about it is his dad was there at the ball game, and Nick told him that something special was going to happen that night to get out to Anaheim, and he did.
Yeah, I'm sure glad he was able to make that game. I mean, you know, when you really look back at it now, it was just a blessing that Nick called him and he was able to get there, and you know, he has that memory.
After his death, a memorial scholarship established in Nick's name and continues to be presented annually by the Kernels Foundation. And Jack, how did that scholarship develop?
You know, that's one of the toughest phone calls I think I've ever taken. Nick's mother, Janet, called our offices and asked to speak to me before the funeral. And Marcia said that she was on the phone, and boy, I had to prepare myself just a little bit because I was shocked that she was calling. But she was strong. I mean, she was very obviously in pain, but I thought after that phone conversation, she just wanted to call and tell me that she knew, of course, that we knew that Nick had passed on, but she wanted to relay the message that what a great experience he had in Cedar Rapids, how much he loved it here, and this was his favorite place of all the places that he had played. And those, I'm paraphrasing, but those were her words to me. And you know, I gave her my condolences, and the conversation wasn't that long, and we hung up, but I'll never forget that phone call, you know, that she would take the time to call, even before the funeral, to let us know and thank us, you know, for how Nick was treated here and how he liked it. Well, it wasn't too much after that, certainly after the funeral, but Dwayne called, Nick's stepfather, and he said that kind of echoed what Janet had said, but that they would like to do something in Nick's name because there was going to be some memorial monies, and we talked it over, and really what came of that is now a yearly scholarship in Nick's name that goes to an area high school student. But that's how it all started. They made the phone calls, they initiated the program, and you know, we just worked with them. And you know, it's such a neat thing every year to have that scholarship available and give to a student, and it keeps Nick's name alive here, and I'm sure, you know, in other places too. But it's nice to see his picture when you walk into the stadium on that center field fence. You know, that will always be there in the scholarship. So it's really a neat story, tragic into someone's life, but certainly a lot of positives came from his death in terms of what they're doing in his memory.
There was a great ceremony on the field after his death, and where we unveiled the number 21 in left center field, and we're down on the field, and the entire Kernels team standing behind, and that was a really neat ceremony.
The Nick Adenhart tribute really ranks right up there amongst the best memories, and certainly the new Veterans Memorial Stadium.
Tonight we're proud and honored to induct Nick Adenhart into the Cedar Rapids Baseball Club Hall of Fame. Accepting tonight on Nick's behalf is his stepfather, Dwayne Gigas.
I'm going to ask you to bear with me if you could this evening. This might be a little interesting to get through. First and foremost, I'd like to send thank yous from Janet and Jim, Nick's mom and dad, who couldn't be here this evening, but they surely send their thank yous, and I'd like to thank them for letting me call Nick's son. So also like to thank the Kernels Foundation, all the fans, all his friends. Nick really loved this place. His best friends were made here. Some of you may remember Brad Kuhn. Brad Kuhn has become kind of a son to me, and their friendship was made here. And so it carries on, this place. A lot of great stories get told about Cedar Rapids when I'm with Brad. What I'd like to convey to you this evening is just the thought that Nick's more than an accident. He's more than a victim of a crime. He's more than a talent that was or a talent that could have been. Nick was a lot of things, and people that knew him knew that what kind of person he was, but some of you may not. I'd like to share a few things about Nick that you may not know. Nick was an extremely intelligent young man. He was recruited by a lot of Ivy League schools. Some of you that may have hung out with him might not believe that, but he actually was recruited by a lot of high academic schools. He was a very funny individual. If you ever get a chance to meet Mike Sosha, Nick made the mistake of mimicking Mike Sosha one time in the locker room in spring training. And he was a great mimicker. He could just basically copy everybody. And as Mr. Molitor will attest, it's not a good idea for a rookie to be running around the locker room mimicking the manager. But Mike found it funny and actually relayed the story to me. The other thing he was a very generous and loving young man. When he got called up to the big leagues, Nick was a little bit of a free spirit. Honestly, he should have been a left-handed pitcher based on his personality, but he never had his phone, never had his wallet. So the big league club is trying to get a hold of him, and they can't reach him. They want to call him up to the big leagues. They're ringing his phone off the hook. Finally, they call Brad's phone, and they were on a road trip in Memphis. And, they asked Brad Kuhn, hey, do you know where Adenhart is? And Brad hands Nick the phone, and Nick's walking down the street in Memphis and talks on the phone a little bit and hangs up, hands the phone back to Brad, and walks over to this lady who's sitting by a shopping cart on the street. And he reaches in his pocket and he takes out all his money and hands it to this lady who was sitting on the street and just walks away from her. Next thing you know, the lady runs up behind him and tackles him and says, oh my God, thank you very much. I'm gonna go get a hotel. This will change my life. And he said, you're welcome, and just walked away. And Brad said, how much money did you give her? He said, I don't know, a couple $100. And Brad said, are you crazy? He goes, hey buddy, we're going to the show. And that's how he went to the big leagues. So that's who Nick was. But first and foremost, out of all that, he was a ball player. And this is the place he got his start. This is the place that he learned how to first become a pro, and he loved this place. This was Nick's Field of Dreams in Cedar Rapids. In life, you very seldom get to live out your dreams. Either you reach for it and it's out of your grasp, or it's out of your reality. You pray that you have the sense to appreciate the art of the journey and the grace to understand when you don't make it. But Nick was able to reach his dreams, and this was the place that allowed this. So we have a very special place in our heart for Cedar Rapids, the fans, and the Kernels. Nick was called home too soon. We always just assume that God needed a good right-hander that day. So we hope that he's pitching on a field in heaven, and that he's up there making people laugh and throwing the ball like he always wanted to do. But he has a home now in Iowa permanently, and we thank you for that. And anytime you're in the ballpark, and if a kid asks you, hey, who's that guy on the wall out there in the outfield, or who's that guy's plaque there, please relay that he was more than the victim of that night. He was a loving son, great teammate, caring individual, and that he was a young man who God blessed with a wonderful arm, and he competed like hell, and he had just a hammer of a curveball, and that would make Nick very proud. God bless you, and thank you all very much.
We're going to keep Dwayne up here, and we're going to bring Tom as well, because Dwayne's not done. He's got another big announcement that has to deal with Nick Adenhart and the Kernels Foundation.
I get to speak twice. That's dangerous. On behalf of the Nick Adenhart Memorial Fund, we're going to donate another $10,000 to the Kernels Foundation on behalf of the Scholarship Fund. We love doing this. Every year I get a packet from one of your wonderful resident students who's won this. And it really, my wife and I sit and read every page of it. We've met a large number of them, and it makes us feel like we can actually do something in his name. So on behalf of us to your community, here's another $10,000.